So, Bob, welcome to CTO Confessions. It's great to have you on board, sir.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Brilliant. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who do you work for?
Yeah, I'm a CTO at a company called PerfectServe. We focus on providing clinical communication, collaboration, and scheduling workflow capabilities. We like to say we ensure that we provide the right message, the right communications in the right way at the right time.
Right.
That's kind of how we look at it. And really at the end of the day, what we do is we focus on making the caregiver's life better, whether it be through more effective scheduling, communications, and making the technology around all of that easier for them to use.
Brilliant. And I think that's really important, especially in environments where there's a lot of things moving around. There's a lot of stuff happening. I always like to use the analogy of kind of open windows. There's lots of windows that are opening, when you have on your desktop, and you got to try and manage it all. And I've been in environments where you think, how the hell they're planning this. It's almost like a crazy, chaotic dance that's going on. So what kind of companies use your tool?
Hospital systems. So doctors, nurses, if you think about, we've all been in a hospital. Sometimes that's some of the most challenging times of our life, right? You're there getting help and so forth. But they're very noisy. There's lots of alerts and bells and buttons to push to get help for whatever you may need, and a lot of communication happening. And it's a very dynamic environment. So we take all of that data via technology and make sure it's delivered in the right way at the right time. And even better now with where things are going with large language models and AI capabilities, we're able to be more deterministic and weed out the noise and make sure what they need to hear or see is available to them in the right way.
Right. Okay. I have actually seen some of these systems in hospitals, and being a curious techie that I am, I'm always curious as to, how they're going about it. And it is interesting how it kind of, as you say, it doesn't replace the people. It just allows them to be able to dance around everything that needs to happen and prioritize things in a particular, in a way that, the most important things get done first, and things do get done. Actually, there's a definition of done using the agile term. And what kind of numbers do you have around, the improvements that these tools, have you got any kind of stats around the difference these tools make?
Yeah, we do. I'll give you one real specific example. We have a hospital system where their KPI, key performance indicator, is that when a patient needs to contact their doc, they get a response within 5 minutes from that caregiver. That's a really fast turnaround, right? But because we control all the mechanisms around scheduling and communication, whether it be a voice call, a text, a push message, or even a pager, believe it or not, there's still 1 million plus pagers in the US in use today.
Wow.
It always shocks people when they
hear. I haven't seen one for years,
Exactly, but they're very effective for what a doc needs, and they have a high level of reliability because of the mechanism of how they send and receive pages. In the hospital system, you can imagine there's lots of poor spots of Wi-Fi coverage because of a lot of interruptions and so forth, and pagers work really well still.
Sure.
We're working to displace that with better technology, but they're still in use. So our technology and the data that we have allows us to provide the hospital system clarity around what is preventing that doc from being able to hit that KPI. Are they rounding? Are they still servicing a patient? Have they been distracted by some type of an emergency? Because we understand all of the communications and alerting and data around that experience or that event, we're able to track it and provide that data in a very meaningful way so that the hospital system can change their procedures in ensuring that they achieve that outcome.
Wow.
And that is one real crisp example where it's not just about sending and receiving messages. We do that all the time, right? There's lots of tools to do that. It's knowing how it's being used, how that particular individual wants to be communicated with, like which method. Is it a push message that's most important to them because it's least distracting? They can just see it on their phone, get the data they need and respond.
Sure.
Is it a phone call? Is it a return phone call? Like all of that. And we can customize our solution to each individual in the care system so that they're enabled to be as least disruptive as possible. Like you know as well as I do, in technology, the most expensive thing is interruptive work that changes the flow. Doctors are the same thing, nurses are the same thing. So if we can prevent the interruption of their flow in the day, yet still get them the data they need in the way that they like it, we can provide high value.
Absolutely. Yeah. On that note of being distracted, I mean, it doesn't take long for me to completely lose the mental model which I've kind of built up over the last half hour to a ping over here, you know, and
That's right.
And it is a huge cost. And I guess it's very tiring as well. You know, we want doctors to be and nurses to be at their best.
That's right.
If they're being interrupted, there's a tiring impact to that as well. So this is great to see technology actually saving people's energy, you know, kind of thing as well, mental space.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we focus on. And we take an extremely white glove approach where we have deep understanding, nurses on staff, practitioners, and people that have operated in that care system that know our technology and know how they need it to be deployed. And it's bringing that together that's our highest value for our customers, and it allows us to be extremely sticky because it's not just about sending a message back and forth, even if it's secure and HIPAA compliant. That's important, but that's table stakes. What makes us different is we have a high level of understanding of how technology is used in the hospital setting, and we get in there and help make it better and make it more effective for the caregivers.
Great. And because I come from a software background, from a tech background myself, I'm really interested in how you get to know what the best directions for the software or the platform are, because obviously, as you kind of mentioned, you're kind of learning, and every environment has its own kind of signature of flow, or it has its kind of nuances. How do you learn from the use of the tool and then feed that back into your system to improve the platform?
So traditionally, you would have all this logic in an application that provides a service, right? And it produces a whole bunch of data. You take it, you put it in a data lake, you churn on the data, you create dashboards. And that's kind of been the traditional way of solving that problem. And that takes months, right? And lots of iterations to get there. And then you find out when you finally create a product, you have to go back to the beginning because it didn't actually solve the problem. What we're seeing in literally the last 3 to 6 months is the advances in large language models, think Cursor specifically, leveraging MCP to integrate us into multiple LLMs, leveraging a flat database, whether it's serviced out of a data lake or not. That's the technology stack. That's the enabler that allows us to go extremely fast. But here's the key, and I know a lot of people are thinking about this in the technology space, is it's the human in the middle that understands how our customers use our tech and how the structure of the data or the business logic comes together. That human in the middle is really our value prop. We have people that understand both sides, and now enabled with products like Cursor and prompt engineering and so forth, we're able to iterate on a value prop that our customers have within hours and days versus weeks and months. And it's flipped it on its head. So we can now quickly iterate together in a conversation through prompt engineering with those tools and show the customer on the first call, this is what's happening with your docs. Like, here's another example. We were learning that they were looking at push notifications that popped on their phone that says, hey, patient in room X needs water. They would see the push notification and just go solve the problem, give them water, top up their meds or what have you, but not acknowledge it. So the data was saying lots and lots of people weren't getting a response in the KPI when they actually were.
Right.
But the fact that we could iterate that quickly and interrogate the data and have the human in the middle with our customers iterate on that so fast, that's value at a very high rate of return. So no matter how much we get excited about the potential of AI, large language models, etc., don't forget that it's the human in the middle that are connecting the two together that leverages that tech to get that value.
Yes, yeah, that's really important. It's really good to hear that as well, because you hear a lot of tech replacing people, but I don't think, for me, tech has always been around augmenting people. It's around assisting their work, or taking the repetition and some of the stuff that we don't like doing, doing it for us, so that makes our life easier. And again, gives us that headspace to do the more important things, which is look after our patients and what have you, in your case.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And here's one last example on that, and that's creating agents based on prompts. When I say agent, an AI agent. So that example I just gave you, what we would do is the outcome of that is create a highly tuned agent for that specific KPI.
Yeah.
And then we present that agent to the customer. And now they constantly interact with that agent. That's no longer a human, with us behind the scenes on that agent, curating it and making sure it's appropriate, it's following GRC. And so now they have an AI agent, not necessarily a human that's constrained by our capacity and time to work with 24/7.
Yeah.
And then we just keep producing those agents for them over and over and over again that solve specific problems based on our data and our business logic.
Wow. And I imagine my head's gone into onboarding people into a team, because obviously people within hospitals are teams, and one of the things that's really costly to bring somebody in is onboarding them, to get them used to working with other people, working the way things have to, and making sure things actually get done. I can imagine this kind of system helps that as well. It kind of smooths out that, accelerates that onboard in effect.
Yeah, I think you're actually talking about onboarding humans so that you can give them that enablement.
Yes.
Let me flip that on its head. We're onboarding agents now. Wow. AI agents. So think about it this way. We have customer A that comes in, buys our product. Through our traditional implementation process, you normally teach them how to use the product, give them a warranty period, and then you move on.
Yeah.
We do that, and we give them an agent that stays with them now. So it's not calling customer service. It's actually having real-time access to an agent that's highly tuned to how they use our product, not generic on the last 100 customers that called, but how they were specifically built, their configuration, their KPIs for success, and that agent is now an employee, if you will, an automated human that is dedicated to that customer based on their customer's data.
Wow. That's pretty neat.
It's pretty cool. It's fun.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We can't demonstrate it on screen right now, because I'd love to see stuff like that. I find stuff like this fascinating, because it does make a difference.
Yeah.
So coming now to yourself, Bob, from a tech leadership perspective, what's your journey been like to where you've got to? Has it been a Mount Everest kind of expedition, or has it been quite smooth sailing?
My journey has been awesome. It started in the Marine Corps. It's the foundation of everything, of who and what I am. It's shaped me to this day. So, you can imagine from that environment, it's very specific. I learned people leadership there, learned mission accomplishment there. And then, it was the foundation that allowed me to go into the public sector and then in the beginning, I started in telecom, and my job there was to go into third world countries and deploy telecom infrastructure, and bringing literally mobile phones into places where they had no phones whatsoever. It was easier to get a cell phone into parts of India and Africa and South America and so forth that didn't have the infrastructure. It was much easier to get them a mobile cell phone than it was phone lines, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's where I broke out from the military into technology, and found that I had a real passion for getting technology out and in use and deriving value from it. Learned that in the telecom days. After doing that for many years, I really naturally evolved into management and leading technology teams. So it was a good blend of my passion for technology, but my leadership foundation from the Marine Corps came together really nicely.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of years doing that, and then had the privilege to move from telecom to healthcare. And there's where at DaVita, I found my true passion. DaVita, the very name of the company means to give life. They're a dialysis company. So you're dealing with human beings 3 times a week for 4 hours at a time, treating them and literally keeping them alive through dialysis. And seeing how technology can make that faster, more efficient, make sure that they're getting the right meds and they're taken care of in the right way. Is a very difficult job, and seeing where technology could come in to do that really spurred me to grow, both from my technical aptitude and more importantly, my human side. DaVita invests a lot in their leaders on the individual themselves and being self-reflective and a humble leader, if you will, and understanding that that's where I really transitioned from. The Marine Corps is all about mission accomplishment, which is foundational. DaVita taught me how to accomplish the mission, but in a way that never sacrifices the people. And then always the leader should be last in that equation. It's our job to accomplish the mission. You do that to people.
Yes.
And if you can do that with people so that they are equally rewarded, they feel valued, and they feel like they're accomplishing something and you accomplish the mission, it's like a double win, right?
Win-win.
So,
everybody's happy. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
So I'm curious because, thank you for your service. I think, I actually was going to join the, because I'm in the UK, I was going to join the RAF. I was in the Air Training Corps very early on. So what lessons did you learn from your time in the forces and you've kind of brought into what I would call civvy world, where you were there any lessons that were quite, instrumental in the way in which you lead teams and help teams develop?
One, it's mission accomplishment, keeping laser focused on what it is you're trying to achieve, and having that focus in a way that it's really bigger than yourself. You're not accomplishing something for you yourself, not some goal in climbing the mountain of your career or whatever, but solving real problems. In the military, obviously, those are a very specific way decided by, whatever decisions that are made there. But in the corporate sense, you have a very specific mission, and rallying people around it to where they understand the mission and what the outcomes are. Like, for an example, in the healthcare settings, being able to make a nurse or a doctor's life better, less noise, less stress, less distractions, the ability to be able to actually get sleep and rest and having a proper schedule for them. Rallying people around that goal and then aligning the skill sets of each individual to what their greatest value is really one of the things that I learned fundamentally in the Marine Corps.
So it sounds very purposeful where you are. When you kind of mentioned moving into the health sector, I mean, it has an impact on people's lives, and what's greater than that, and so how do you convey that vision? Is it? I mean, we've seen the posters around, corporate walls where you have all these kind of fancy statements and what have you. But what's your tips on getting people to not only know what the purpose is and what the end outcome is, but also to really kind of marry themselves to it and make it happen and fight for it?
It's not a banner on the wall, that's for sure. Or a slogan. For me, it's having like-minded people that truly are driven by changing the outcomes in the clinical and healthcare settings. So one way we've done that is, pre-COVID, it was a much easier setting to where you could go spend time in a clinic. Being close to the use of our products and giving care helps a ton. Like having that empathy, that true understanding of how hard the job is for a nurse or a doctor or practitioner or what have you to do what they do. is critical. And then finding people that see that same vision. There are some people, and there's nothing wrong with it, that are just technologists that like to do shiny things and drive technology. And there's places for that. That's not what I recruit and look for. I look for people that they understand that technology is a in to an outcome of improving patient care.
Yeah.
And what they're really focused on is, how do I take this new technology capability and make a doc's life better, make a nurse's life better, or my support people, my internal customers, how do I make the implementation team's life better through technology? So it's not a technology for the sake of technology. It's getting people around you that see that vision.
Yeah.
Because that's a mindset. You can't train somebody to have that mindset. They either do it or they won't. But you can train them to be more enabled and capable of doing that.
Yes, yeah. Really important stuff. And I think it also makes, offline we were talking about making people feel good about the work that they do, and it has that feedback effect. And that has an impact on the way they are, the way they show up in all kinds of arenas of their life. I've got a note here, Bob, around scaling teams. You've done some pretty big scaling in your time. What was that like? Did it get really messy? Did it get really fun? Another word for messy. What was that like?
Yeah, I think messy is fun. Getting comfortable with it. Maybe that does come back from the Marine Corps background. We believe we can accomplish any mission we're given.
Yeah, nice.
But getting back to your question, scaling it is hard, right? It's when you're in a small team, dozen or so people. You know everybody personally, you're able to directly coordinate and orchestrate what you're doing. In the large teams, in the hundreds or the thousands, that's not the case. You have to delegate, you have to trust that your mission is being conveyed down. So it really starts with having the right people, especially in your direct report team, that is in alignment with your vision. And when I say the right people, I don't mean a bunch of people that tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
You need to have in your core group of leaders around you, people that feel safe and comfortable in challenging you, helping you see things from a different perspective than how you're seeing. Because I only know what I know, but if I'm listening more than I'm talking, and my leaders feel comfortable with giving me that feedback, I now have the visibility of what everybody knows in that team. And then the synergistic win of that is, if you build leaders that build team in the same way, you think about that layers into your organization. I mean, I like to stay as flat as you can. I don't like a lot of layers in an organization, but if people are creating smaller groups of teams that are empowered and feel safe, feel like they can give feedback and affect change in the direction of the organization, that's been my ticket to growth in every case.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I love that. It kind of speaks again to, we again, offline, we had this conversation. I always joke that we should record stuff that was offline, because sometimes they're the really juicy topics. But, Agile, I mean, that's what Agile is supposed to do. I'm not going to say was, because it's not quite dead yet. It's I think it's still alive in the values and principles that have been embedded into organizations. But we do need to create these self-organizing cross-functional teams that actually know clearly what the outcome is, what the vision is, what the mini vision is for what they're working on, so they can just go and get it done, obviously within certain constraints,
Sure.
And but it's beautiful to see once that's actually happening. What's the stuff you see going on in leadership that makes your skin crawl? You think, what's all that about?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that makes my skin crawl is a statement like, "Well, it's our largest customer, we have to do it," or "They're not going to sign or renew or extend if we don't do X, Y, or Z." And I think the premise is wrong from the beginning. The customer isn't always right. The customer is extremely important, because we live to provide value and change people's lives in a positive way through technology. But we have to feel comfortable to challenge that and really understand what that is. So many times you go off and people get, I had a leader teach me at my time at DaVita about Smokey the Bear and firefighters. If you create an organization that just reacts to everything that is said, that we got to do it because the customer said, or this or that, you create a whole bunch of firefighters. And I had a leader, a mentor that taught me, you want Smokey the Bear out there, people that prevent fires.
Yeah.
So going back to the initial question is that assumption that a leader or a customer says, we got to do X, that can't be challenged or vetted or make sure we really understand what X is. That has been a constant, like, make my skin crawl moment or wake me up in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And obviously you've got the needs of the business, which needs to make money and keep customers on board. But also, I've seen it in my career as well, where customers have sent a product in a very different direction, which isn't part of the bigger picture. It's very specific to their stuff. Yeah, so it's a difficult one, and I can imagine. So there you go. Then here's an even tougher question, Bob. How do you deal with that? How do you push back on it, or do you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, foundational beliefs, right? In the Marine Corps, we challenged everything. And if you can't withstand the challenge, then your premise may be wrong. And I think the other way you deal with it as a leader is you have to stay humble. My ideas, my solutions are not always the best. And if you know that and truly embrace that reality, then you're going to get a better product or outcome. Sometimes it's the most junior person on the team that sees something that nobody else sees. And if we talk about agile, fail fast, iterate in small increments, and do that very quickly, it makes that issue easier to digest a change.
Yes.
And so, I think that's how you deal with it. And most importantly, creating an environment where people feel safe to challenge, and you have to end in a common agreement and direction forward. You think about Agile, fist of five, everybody, to what level of commitment are we all in the decision we just made? You can challenge it, but at the end of the conversation, you need to be all in agreement and rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And get on board with what we've decided. That doesn't mean everything's a community decision.
Yeah. Yes.
That would be made.
Yeah. The challenging. So I love this idea of people challenging what the leader may be coming, or what the team direction is, and that has to be done. Everybody can be challenging everything. So how do you find that right balance where people can challenge, but then you do agree? You go, do you know what? We're committing to this. That's what we're going to do. Or I've heard everybody's voices, but this is the bit. This is the picture. This is the vision. This is the road. This is the path. Let's go for it.
Yeah, ultimately, I get the privilege to make final decisions, right? That's my role. That's my responsibility. However, listening, it first starts with creating an environment where people over time feel safe.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the most important thing. I'll give you an example. Yesterday on my weekly directs leadership call, one of my leaders, I was asking for feedback, and I wanted to hear how people were feeling about where we are and how we're progressing. And the leader specifically kind of called me out and said, you show up to every Sev 1 incident that we have. And when you do, you change the tone of the entire call as soon as you speak.
Yeah.
And he was 100% right. I'm there. And if I start speaking, it's immediately assumed as a declarative direction. Like, why are we rolling back? I may think that's a question. That's a statement. And now everybody on the call is trying to figure out, did the boss just tell us to roll back, and do we need to keep telling them to do so? So back to your point, I could have taken offense by that and said, well, I need to be there or whatever. I actually reflected on that and realized he's right. Just literally show, I've delegated this. These people have this role. Trust them to do it.
Yeah.
So that's how, in my opinion, you accomplish that.
Oh, and we hear this a lot in leadership training. There's endless books written about this. The one particular one that comes to mind is the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lewinsky. And that psychological safety. And again, this was a conversation we were having offline. We really got to start pressing that record button sooner. Having that psychological safety is so fundamental to a really well-functioning team. So was that the case also within the Marines? Because I mean, the Marines is a very different environment, and you're going into very different environments as well. Is it the same case there as well?
No, the foundation. So yeah, so yes and no. There are formats where everyone gets a voice, if you will.
Yeah,
but it's way more structured and not the same in the corporate setting. I'll just say
no.
But foundationally, that early experience, and then supported by the DaVita, what DaVita taught me is create the safe place so that you can hear from everyone and then listen to them. And that doesn't happen at the moment you're making the most difficult question or decision. It happens in all your team meetings. It happens over time in demonstrating that it is a safe place, that people can express their values. If you don't use that tool until that one critical moment, it's too late.
Yeah.
And it's like the bank account. You're depositing into that bank account day after day. Your withdrawals are huge. One withdrawal takes months of safety. Yeah.
I love that analogy, actually. I use that quite a lot, small deposits, because that's what creates the resilience within the system. You are going to take a big draw out of the system, and it has to have a pretty big credit for you to be able to pull on that, so that's really good to know. I got on the question of, mindsets. You mentioned mindsets earlier on. What's easier, changing somebody's mindset or a process?
Oh, process, hands down. Mindset's core my mindset is core to who I am. It would be very hard to change me and get me to believe that a dictator, directive, prescriptive leadership style is effective. There's nothing you can do that's going to convince me that mindset is right. So mindset, without a doubt. And most importantly, I can't change anyone's mindset. Only you can change your mindset. I can give you data. I can give you feedback. I can give you opportunities to experience what a different mindset would be like. But at the end of the day, that's something you choose as a human to decide how you're going to show up every day and what your mindset's going to be.
Yeah. It just reminds me of various characters I've come across in my career, that their mindset, the attitude, I'm trying to kind of use the right words here, but their attitude wasn't quite aligned with what we needed in the space. I guess that's a kind of that is a mindset. Are there any kind of tips or ways in which you can help somebody have a better mindset around there, a better attitude towards work and their team?
The first one that comes to mind is early in my career, in one of my first leadership positions outside the Marine Corps. I had a meeting. The meeting was for me. They were presenting data to me, and I came into the meeting, and there was a moment in the meeting when I said, "This is an absolute waste of my time. You guys were not prepared, didn't have the data." And I left the meeting. A mentor who was also a leader, another leader, my boss, was either in it or aware of it, pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, Bob, let me just give you another perspective. Your actions are like a pebble thrown in water, and the ripples of that are far-reaching, well beyond what you will ever see. And the damage I did in that meeting and the way I showed up and the way I approached it, even if the meeting was a waste and they weren't prepared, the way I showed up, the mindset that I had caused a ripple that was long affecting beyond that moment that I thought was just a moment, and I've moved on." So it's those kind of real world examples where I trusted that mentor, respected that mentor, so I listened. If I didn't trust that mentor, had that mentor not created an environment with me that I didn't even understand they were creating, where I felt safe with them, I probably wouldn't have heard it. So that's just an early forming of as leaders, we have big impact, positive or negative, and really being self-aware of that is important.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And on that topic, how often do people say no to you? Because I think that's a sign of leadership, isn't it? It's a sign of the space and environment you've created around you?
Yeah. Sometimes I think I've created too safe of a place. I've said that a few times recently. Quite often. And my only ask is, I'm totally comfortable with you telling me no or why or challenging, as long as you bring a solution or another way to approach the problem. No for the sake of no is just being difficult.
Belligerent.
That's right. Do the mental homework to have a counter proposal, another way to solve it. And I'll tell you, more often than not, somebody else taking ownership and solving the problem their way produces a way better outcome than them doing it my way. Because if they do just do it my way because I'm the boss, and it doesn't produce a positive outcome, they're just going to say, well, it was the boss's idea. But if you let them do it their way, and it does produce the positive outcome, great. But even better is if it doesn't produce the outcome you wanted, they're going to own it because it was their idea and their way of solving it. Yeah,
I think that's really important, is to get them to really take ownership, heart, mind and soul, everything. Just, it's theirs, and they can then celebrate the win fully, and also the failure. If if it doesn't go well, it's what was the quote I saw the other day, that the most successful people are kings and queens of failure, because they get stuff wrong, and that's a sign of them making progress and growing. So that's important. I've got another tough question here for you, because, again, having been in software, I can imagine that the systems get very complex, get very big. There's a huge investment in getting things, even a small way towards the final outcome. Have you ever had any moments where, you've started to go down a rabbit hole of developing things in a particular way and suddenly realize, oh, this is wrong. We need to back up here, actually dismantle what we've done and start again. How did that feel?
Yeah, it never feels good, but it is, it's liberating once you get past the emotion. And we could do a whole podcast on how many things that I've done wrong and failed and learned from it. But the one that really sticks out right now is we were in the early days of CI/CD, continuous integration and delivery, automation. We were hearing that our build times to produce environments for our internal customers to do software development or whatever they wanted to do was too long, right? It was taking weeks or months before they could get the server they needed, or virtual server or whatever it was. And so we're like, okay, that's great. We can solve that with technology. We invested in tools and people and process, and we took months and literally made it hours. If you remember in the early days of the ability to automate consumption, push a button and I get a virtual server.
Yes.
So we went from months to days, only to find out the real blocker was the requester of the environment still needed weeks or months to figure out what they wanted to do with it.
Oh no, right.
So we made it really fast to get environments to build and didn't solve the real problem. So you think about the lean Toyota mentality, right? The assembly line and all that. We over-optimized one component, only to be bottlenecked at the next component in the line.
Wow.
So, we adjusted and actually still used that highly optimized service, but then went down the line and fixed the rest. But what I took from that as a leader is make sure you understand the true scope of the problem and you're solving for all the constraints, not over-optimizing one aspect of your problem.
I think that's really important. In fact, I was having that conversation around the factory line, and anybody can press the button, and those constraints. I guess the problem is that we're in such a rush to get somewhere. There's this kind of pressure to deliver. We're not actually stopping to think about what we're actually doing. Again, speaking to frameworks or philosophies like Agile, that they're attempting to kind of solve that to a certain extent and get us to reflect. There's a saying actually around this, is that don't just do something, stand there, which is the opposite of, don't just stand there, do something. And it's the idea is to kind of reflect, because we can do loads of work and tick lots of boxes, but is it going in the right direction? Is it actually what we want to do? Is there a problem here?
Yeah, it's very interesting observation. Jocko Willink, somebody I follow, a teacher in this space, talks about detaching, stepping back from a situation and observing and not being kind of in the weeds. So as a leader, detaching becomes critical. I'll give you, another example around that is I used to think that massive effort solves all problems. Just grin and bear it, work hard, put a lot of people on the, and it's just not true, right? It's not true. Spending more time on understanding what the problem is can produce a much better value so many times. Detaching, stepping back. Bezos talks about two-way, one-way door decisions, and that the more senior you become, you need to delegate two-way door decisions that are easy to back away from and focus on those one-way door decisions and spend a lot of time and energy on it. And we don't do that. We spend way too much time on two-way door problems when we should be spending a lot of our time and experience on one-way door problems.
That's a really good reminder, actually. I think that's a really good one for our audience, because we do need to have that. Also, that strength of character. And again, speaking to the psychological safety in the space, it's not just psychological safety downwards, it's upwards as well. Being able to say to the rest of the business, do you know what? We really need to kind of slow down here and really think about this, because this is a biggie,
Yeah.
So on that front, how do you deal with that? I mean, somebody that's been in the in the Marine Corps, I can imagine that you have a kind of gravitas. I don't know. I don't work with you, but I can imagine that has a gravitas around it. Are you able to communicate to the rest of the business when you feel something needs to be a particular way and we do need to slow down?
It's an evolving skill. It's definitely, I can bring a level of intensity that it can be more counterproductive than productive. So I think it really starts with constantly being self-aware as when do you want to bring fortitude and when do you want to bring patience, if you will. It goes back to that outage I referred to a few minutes ago. I have a high sense of urgency in everything I do, mission accomplishment. So I not only need to be self-aware of when to throttle that, but be aware of those that I'm interacting with. It's just really important to be self-aware, I guess.
100%. Yeah. Awareness is, I think, is the biggest tool in all forms of leadership. If you're not really aware, you're running on autopilots, and what created those autopilots are probably bad experiences, some form of trauma, some form of learned behavior, or something that was imposed upon us. So we've got to wake up to actually, what is best for the situation, not what we've been conditioned to show up as, So
you remind me of a technique, and I think part of the purpose of this call is to give people little techniques. I had a mentor teach me at one point, when you're being triggered, you talked about things that are in our psyche and come from our childhood and what have you. There are things throughout my day that I find do trigger me and cause me to be more reactive than reflective. And what he taught me was have a notebook on your desk at all times. And when that event occurs, just write down what was happening right before it. Don't think about it, just write it down. And then look, just like in software development, look for patterns. And I found patterns to be a little vulnerable here on this call where I felt personally attacked, even though I wasn't. Yeah. And in my military background, personal attack has a very extreme meaning to it. And then I would lean in and I would drive harder, and that produces the worst outcome, right? So I think that is a really critical, simple thing anyone can do. Write down what are your triggers, and then reflect on them. And then that way, the next time you start to feel yourself triggered, you can mentally say, okay, what I just heard caused me to react. I'm leaning in. I need to detach. I need to step back. And it's amazing how graceful people will be when you do that. Like even in a board meeting, the most intense conversations you can have is with your investors. there are times when I realize I'm taking something maybe more personal than I need to, or more directed at me, when it's not. It's just whatever it is. People will give you amazing grace if you say, you know what, I need to step back, think about what you were just giving me in feedback, and then come back to that.
Yeah.
Versus leaning in and trying to answer it, using too many words. I think that's a real good takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's here you go. This is a confession from me. I should be asking for confessions, but this is one of the leadership tricks that I have, and it's work done by Carl Jung, and he talks about the concept of the shadow self. Have you heard that concept before? Yeah. So the idea is that we've got these different versions of ourselves that are ready to show up. Okay, so they get triggered, and they're ready to show up. So my confession is that I actually know my shadows quite well, because I've done similar exercise to what you described, and I check in with them in the morning. I check in, I go, how you doing? What do you need? And sometimes I can feel them, they're right on the edge. I'm ready to be triggered. I'm like, I'm off the safety catch, and sometimes that means me just stepping away and arranging meetings again. So I think this is, for the audience out there, it's really important that we look at these self-leadership concepts, because they do show up in the space, and they create dramas when we don't intend them to be dramas. The old Greek philosophy saying, know thyself. I think that's a really important place to start. Yeah. In the general business of business, who do you think is the most misunderstood person in an organization from where you sit?
The first thing that comes to mind is our CFO. Everybody sees the CFO, at least for me, and maybe as a CTO now, and getting to experience this in a whole different way. It's always a adversarial. They want you to do more with less and challenge everything. But, embracing that role, to understand that they're there to help ensure that, what's the saying, money goes to where it's most cared for. And if I look at that relationship as, if I'm able to convey the value and the reason why, and convince the CFO, whose sole purpose and job is to be a good keeper of the finances, how much more successful am I going to be? And Jocko Willink, I referenced him earlier, wrote a book about, his military experience. And one of the things he realized was his teams weren't getting approval to go do the jobs they wanted to do. I could get more technical on the military side, but that's just the concept was the higher command was not approving them to do what they thought they needed to do. And when he flipped it on his head and said, well, I'm not providing the data and the clarity they need to approve. It's taking accountability, right? So I think right now, for me personally, understanding that it is my job as the leader of technology to ensure the CFO, the CEO, or my board understands why I believe this investment in this way is going to produce this outcome. I can't package it in a way that's targeted to them and convince them of that outcome, then it's probably better we don't do it.
Yes.
And embracing that and leaning into it, as opposed to being a victim to that process.
Yeah. Sometimes when I've got, and I've seen this in other leaders as well, where there's a feeling rather than an objective kind of set of data that they can kind of push in front of this. Just feels like the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about people that say things like that?
I think unfortunately feelings are what drive most people. So for me, I'm very much an introvert as a human being. So it takes a lot of energy for me to play in the space of feelings and people and so forth. Wow. However, what I've realized is I have to be able to translate that as a technologist and a leader of technology is really my primary responsibility, is to translate through feelings with data, facts, and most importantly, value, like understanding how is the technology, the solution, the investment that I'm proposing going to make a nurse's life better, a doctor's life better, my implementation team's life better. Because if we do that, the outcome will be higher revenue, better EBITDA, which is what our investors expect. We're not a nonprofit. We are a PE-backed company, and all of those things come together when you communicate through the emotion with data, with facts, and with ROI.
Brilliant. I love it. That's great. And this reminds me of the book again by Daniel Pink, Who's Human to Sell. We need to sell what we're trying to achieve, because we're always selling. We just need to get really good at it. And also speak the language of the people that we're speaking to, because, I know there's certain people, if I went over and said, I've just got this feeling, they'll just look at me again. All right, whatever, kind of thing. So, tune in. So I'm going to come back to your time in the Marine Corps, because I think that's I don't get to speak to many people that have been in the forces. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned from that role that you bring into your space right now? Is it structure, or is it?
I'm a highly structured individual, probably because of starting in the Marine Corps. However, it's mission first, always mission first. And what that means in the professional sense is, what is the objective, the ROI, how are we going to generate revenue, whatever. Mission first. However, in the corporate setting, it's ensuring that everyone down to the most junior person in the military, it was a necessary, because you could lose people throughout the executing of a mission, and you needed the most junior person to understand what the objective was, right?
Yes.
In the corporate setting, slightly different. By having the most junior person on board with what the mission is, has a vast improvement in your likelihood for success, because everyone's rowing in the same direction. So mission first. What's evolved past that, and a lot from the investment that Davida poured into me, and that's mission without sacrificing the humans. Like, the two can be one. Like, my personal goal at this point in my career is aligning the humans of the organization I get the privilege to lead with the mission, so both achieve outcomes that are equal.
Nice.
It's not just about revenue generating, not even just about making our customers' lives better. It's also doing those two things where the people that get to be a part of the process feel like they're better. So if you imagine a world, the people around me on my leadership team and the teams that they build actually go home at the end of the night feeling like today they made a nurse's life better. Today they made a doctor's schedule better, and that person's going to have a higher quality life. Like, that resonates with people. They didn't just generate revenues, make a sale. They actually changed somebody else's life and better because of what they contributed today.
Nice.
That's the blend of that whole thing for me.
I love it. Here we go. Fun part of the podcast. I want to offer you a wish, Bob. I'm going to be a tech genie for a second. Okay. So whatever you wish for, I'm going to make it come true. What would you wish for?
Man, one wish. I'm stunned by the question. One wish. My one wish would be that I could convey the same passion that I have for changing people's lives through technology to the most junior person in the organization that's just coming up, so that I know that that's going to continue to persist well beyond me, not just because technology is going to come and go. All the tech I'm creating today probably won't even exist in a couple of years. But there's some people in the organization that are coming up that are going to transform technology for the future, that they could do it in a way that creates value, makes other people feel safe, and become the leaders of the future that create that kind of environment for people. That would be really cool.
Yeah, that's a beautiful legacy. That's what we want to create. Reminds me of Mindset, actually, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's done some great talks on this. And our job as leaders is to light fires in other people, and then to help them bellow those flames, so that they can walk on their own feet and make the difference themselves, through what you sparked as well. So I think that's beautiful. I'm going to make that come true. Okay. I'm going to endeavor to that. I'm going to work on it right after this podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Brilliant. So as we come to the closing arc of our time together, unfortunately, Bob, what's your final gift that you'd like to offer the tech leadership audience out there listening to this? What's the final words that you'd like to leave them with as a takeaway?
My final words would be listen more than you talk. Empower more than you direct. And enjoy the process. Like, we work half or more of our life is spent in the work setting. Make sure that you're enjoying the process and not just running through the journey. I'll leave with one last example. I was going through a leadership program, and the objective was to climb this telephone pole. You're all wired up in a harness, and everybody in the leadership program is holding the wire that's hooked to you. You run up this pole, you stand at the top of a telephone pole, and you jump off into the air and hit a bell. And they're holding you with the rope, so you're safe, right? They set the stage up. I rose my hand. I'll go first. I ran up the pole, got to the top, jumped off, hit the bell, came down. And the instructor pulled me aside and he said, "That was amazing. You did everything we asked you to do." And he said, "What would have happened if you stopped at the top and just stood there for a minute and looked around and saw the horizon, the birds, the scenery, just be present for a moment?" And I've never forgotten that. Like, I totally missed that opportunity. Accomplished the mission.
Yeah.
I missed an amazing opportunity of just being present for just 1 minute at the top of that pool.
Beautiful. What a beautiful note to finish on. Thank you very much for your time, Bob. It's been wonderful having you on CTO Confessions.
Thank you.